In a land where cacti outnumber cell towers and the horizon stretches further than a fiber optic cable, it's time for Valley's Bits, Bytes and Banter, the podcast that looks a bit behind the scenes of a broadband provider, takes a big bite out of the tech world, and serves up a healthy dose of banter with people in our community. And now, without further ado, here's your host, Bob Dahlstrom.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter. As Lee Patterson said at the top, I'm your host, Bob Dahlstrom, along with my co-host and partner in crime, Ralph Score. Ralph, how you doing today?
Well, I'm not in jail, so it's okay.
Well, we're both here.
Yeah.
We'd still mic you up if you were. We'd figure out a way.
I would be calling you for my
there.
Bail money, Bob.
Hey, we got to keep to the schedule, man. No matter what.
We have petty cash for that, don't we?
Well, you know, there's a rock in my house or in my backyard underneath there is petty cash
I'll
for
have
us.
to tell you about the time we broke my friend out of jail in Nogales when we were in seniors in high school. But that's another story.
That's another podcast.
Yeah,
I think that's
right.
what.
We're not going to go there. I won't. No names today.
Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, if everybody doesn't know, you can follow us along on Podbean, and you can download the free app and follow, download, like, share, review all our episodes at podbean.com. You can find us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, and just about anywhere you can get your podcasts, including YouTube. We're on our YouTube channel there and our website at vtc.net/blog. They're all listed there as well to listen to.
Yep. So...
all right, so thank goodness we had enough money for bail for you, Ralph. So.
Yeah, that's right. I'm glad I'm here. So
this is going to be a great episode.
I'm really glad I'm here because we're talking today about movies, right? We're talking about films, blockbusters.
And specifically Summer Blockbusters.
Summer Blockbusters.
Yes.
We got a couple of our buddies here, Jake and Josh. I'm gonna bring their mics up so they can get in on this discussion to begin with. But before we get to that, I want to talk a little bit about, we got GoStream Now, right? That's kind of an aggregate website that we have that is... That's built for us, but it's really an aggregator as far as everything streaming out there. And a lot of people don't necessarily understand streaming. They've heard of streaming.
Right.
Even though they don't realize that if they've been using YouTube for years and years, they're streaming, right? But and one of the things that people don't realize is that there's two different kinds of streaming. There's a live stream coming to you, and then there's what they call a progressive download. And the progressive download, it starts playing it on a player that loads up, and then if you don't have enough bandwidth, it catches up to the bandwidth, and then it starts buffering. Right, so it's real important to have enough bandwidth to do really good streaming, and with the way they're feeding signals out nowadays, 4K is the norm for a lot of TVs, right? And over in Japan now, 8K is the norm, and that's a 100 meg stream. So if you've got 4 TVs that are all streaming 8K, you're going to have 400 megs just for that. So
that's insane.
Yeah.
Of course, people would have said not long ago, 4K, what? Who needs that?
And Blackmagic, and you guys know who Blackmagic is. They make cameras and that. They also make DaVinci as an editing system, but they just came out with their 12K camera.
No kidding.
So, yeah, for filmmakers and that. They're
for use.
For use, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're going to, and we were talking about how much data do you need for a 12K camera? A lot, right? A lot.
That's a ton.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? What? I mean, I'm thinking 12K.
The biggest problem is going to be for makeup artists.
Well, I mean,
because it's going to show all those little pores in someone's face.
I was going to say, I don't need to count the pores on somebody's nose when they're in a movie. That's distracting.
You're going to on the big screen. It's going to be. They're going to have to dumb it down for the film status. And I can still remember when they started doing what they call digital intermediate with film, right? Where they would, when digital cinema first came in, or when nonlinear came in, when George Lucas and that started that, they would take the film negative and they would scan it. And this is what they still do today, right? They'll scan the film negative, turn it into a file, and then they'll start doing their editing. Very few people cut on a flatbed anymore, So
that's amazing how things change. Always looking for ways to be more efficient, to be, quicker, to get from filming to production to release. Yeah. And they're always doing those things now.
Well, and a lot of people go, well, film is dead. And I go, nah, you better talk to Steven Spielberg and Christopher Nolan about that. Because they still love shooting on film. Steven Spielberg's got an affinity for the physical medium. He loves checking the gate. And checking the gate is making sure there's nothing caught in there film-wise and that. But a little bit of film history right here. The earliest surviving film is believed to be Louis Le Prince's Roundhay Garden scene, which was from 1888. It's a 2-second film of his family walking around in a garden. That was the first surviving motion picture film that they realized. It was basically, there were some earlier ones, Edward Muybridge's The Horse in Motion. I think everybody's kind of seen that. And that really wasn't so much a film. That was done with single photos, right? But by it got that frame rate, right? In other words, if we show X number of photos in X amount of time, it simulates motion. And that's really what we're doing, is fooling the eye and the brain and that something is motion. And that's why they always call it motion pictures.
Right.
Right. So, and then feature film, the first feature-length film is generally considered to be the story of the Kelly Gang. Shot in 1906, produced in Australia. It was a 70-minute drama based on the story of Ned Kelly. While only a portion of the film survives, it's widely recognized as the first dramatic feature-length film. And 70 minutes is really interesting because nowadays they consider 72 minutes to be feature-length. Right? If you want to have something that's qualified as a feature-length film in Hollywood, it's got to be 72 minutes long. Right? Anything below that is actually not considered a feature, like if you were going to get it in the Academy voting.
Does anybody make a movie 72 minutes long?
Well, it's funny because when we made our movie, we specifically said this has to be 72 minutes longer. So we specifically said we're going to use every single scene we can to make it 84 minutes long, And then I ended up cutting out all the crap that was in it later on, and took it back down to about 74 minutes. So anyway,
we got it all in. And you go, well, might want to trim that back.
Yeah, but the interesting thing about that film was it was released on Boxing Day, day after Christmas in Australia. It was very controversial because it made the Kelly Gang look very sympathetically.
Oh, really?
And they were a bunch of killers.
Yeah, that must have been a big time controversy at the time.
Yeah, so that's all I got today.
That's all you got?
That's all I got today. No spurious facts.
No spurious facts. I have one spurious fact for you. It has nothing to do with movies, although we use computers now, right, to edit movies and to generate special effects.
Yeah.
The first commercial computer with a graphical user interface. Now, if you remember before, when computers first came out, you had to actually type in the text commands to tell it what to do.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you learned languages. Like I learned 3 different computer languages in college because that's where you're telling different systems what
DOS,
to do.
Right? DOS was the big
Pascal, BASIC, COBOL. I learned a bunch of those. Fortran.
Yeah.
But somebody came up with the graphical user interface, which is what we use now, basically. And do you have any idea who that was that came up with it?
His name was GUI.
That's what they called it.
Yeah.
It's actually Steve Jobs.
I was going to say Jobs.
Yeah, because they were really and Windows was really the copy of what Apple had done. They said we got to do what those guys are doing. Well, I can remember working in a facility, and these guys from Honeywell came up, and they had a computer called the Cubicomp system, right? And it was one of the first 3D rendering ones, right? And I'm looking at this thing, and they're going, and I go, what is it? And it goes, it's a widget we designed. And I go, well, how long did it take you to do this? I go, well, we started rendering, and we came back 3 days later, and it was almost done rendering. And they could swivel the image around. It was pretty, I'm just looking at it going, wow, this is just groundbreaking in those days.
Do you know what the name of it was? And it was the first commercial computer with a GUI interface and a mouse. Ooh. And you know what the name of it was?
I don't know.
The name of the computer was Apple Lisa.
Apple Lisa. Oh my god.
The Lisa. And the Lisa stood for Logical Integrated Software Architecture and is the name of Steve Jobs' daughter.
Oh. Wow.
And that's why he came up with that. Imagine, if you have to type in everything for, say, editing for a movie.
Oh, forget it.
Or effects, where now you can click on different apps and different programs and software and use them that way. It really revolutionized computers.
And he did this out of his garage, right?
Yes, he did.
Him and Wozniak, right?
Him and Wozniak.
Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Wow.
The Steves.
Yeah.
Steve and Steve.
So what do you think? Break and come back in and get to it?
Yeah, guys, we're excited about our special episode today. We'll formally introduce our special guest after the break, and we're going to talk about summer blockbusters and how does that tie into internet? We'll tie that all in when we come back. Stick around.
Hey, are you playing Fortnite?
Yeah.
Let's go, man. I'm gonna beat you so bad.
You know I could go pro if I wanted to. You do not stand a chance. Besides, we always just play against each other.
Yeah, that's true.
We need to find more people to play with.
Hey, Valley Telecom has the Fiber Gaming Network, an online community where we can compete in tournaments and win real prizes, or just meet new gamers and participate in casual game nights.
Whoa, that's so cool. But how much does it cost?
It's actually free. Valley Telecom is providing this to their community at no charge. We just go to vtc.net/gaming and sign up.
Wow, that's so awesome. Now I can show everyone I'm the best.
Get in the game with a fiber gaming network powered by Valley Telecom. Go to vtc.net/gaming to sign up today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter, the podcast I do with my co-host Ralph Score. I'm Bob Dahlstrom, and Ralph, today's episode is a special one.
Oh,
and
man.
We love doing these special episodes we've done, and we did one already earlier this year with our current guest today. And this one we're going to talk. We're coming up on summer, believe it or not.
Yeah,
it's right around the corner.
Hard to believe.
And we're going to talk summer blockbusters. I think that's a great one.
Let
me introduce our guest real quick. First off, we have he's our managed IT technician now here at Valley, Mr. Josh Encinas. Josh, welcome, man.
Hi, it's good to be here. I'm going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time. And also, of course, our broadband support specialist, man of the hour, Jacob Encinas. Jacob, how are you doing?
Doing good. Glad to be back.
Yeah, we're glad to have both you guys back. And we haven't been back, and we're still arguing over the Christmas movie.
We're not talking about that anymore.
We'll let that one go.
Yeah,
I just wanna say-
we don't even get started.
I just want to say, Die Hard came out in the summer.
Yeah. Well, Halloween came out in the summer. And it was one of those ones that was Halloween in August.
Yeah, there we
scared the heck
go.
out of
Just
everybody.
saying, Die Hard came out in the summer.
Yeah.
And those, they came out in the summer, so they were probably considered summer blockbusters.
So-
and that's what we're going to talk about
So
today.
Halloween was not a Halloween movie then.
It was a summer blockbuster.
They were building up to it. See,
Yeah.
so one of the things we want to talk about is people. You hear it all the time: summer blockbuster, whatever that. What does that mean? How did that start? When did it get started? Do we know the first? What was considered the first summer blockbuster movie?
Actually, and it's the 50th anniversary of it. Jaws was really
I was
the
gonna
first one.
say,
Yeah, he's got the shirt.
Josh came in very subtly wearing that Jaws, which is an awesome.
And I
Jaws
love
shirt,
that.
by the way. I love that shirt.
I have a Jaws tie at home. Here's the thing, though. I think Blockbuster, interestingly, it used to be referred to what actually happened physically at the theater. It was standing around the block to get in. But I think now they've equated that to how much money something makes.
Right.
Because...
That was an argument we were having the other night about it, too.
Yeah.
Like, is it about the money, or is it about the cultural impact, or how are we going to look at it? But
Well, yeah, you're right. What determines a blockbuster, right?
Yeah.
And Ralph is right. Basically, it was literally people that would line up at the time. The only way you could see the movie, right,
Yeah.
was to
Yeah.
go to the movie theater. They would literally such long lines. They would go around
Yeah.
the block several times. People lining up to get in to get tickets. To see
When
it.
you didn't have the multiplex thing we have nowadays, right, where you've got 12 screens and 8 of them can have the same movie if they want to have it.
and I'm sure it still happens at the Chinese theater in Hollywood.
Oh,
so
at Mann's and also the Pacifica and places like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you still get the big, especially on the opening screening.
Right. And now there are several things that determine that over the time. And you're right about both of those. First of all, Jaws was like we said, Jaws, summer of 1975. It actually was released June 20th. This year, June 20th will be its 50th anniversary that Jaws came out. Yeah. Crazy. And that could be a whole podcast alone, the story about how that movie got made.
Yeah.
But that movie was also the first movie to crack $100 million at the box office.
Yeah.
So that became
in
a benchmark.
75.
In
Yeah.
1975. You think about that.
Think of what are those dollars today?
You think
Yeah,
about that.
Because it was only what was it, like $7 to get made? Not even $7 to get into a theater.
Probably,
then. It's
$3.
about $4.50
I'd have to
$4.50 at
look
the
that
most.
up.
Yeah.
But it was also drive-in theaters
Yeah,
and all
yeah.
that, and that was the whole thing.
And it actually made $7 million its first week.
That's a lot of
Think about that.
it
'cause-
was-
a lot of money.
and then that was how, talk about word of mouth. And then it kept building.
Yeah.
People talking about it, learning about it.
And they were so over budget and over schedule in making that movie. Alan Ladd was the guy that got behind it all, and he backed up Spielberg the whole way. And the studios were all over him about why is this movie taking so long, and what's wrong with this shark.
Bruce, wasn't it?
Bruce, yeah,
the
Bruce, they named the shark
yeah.
Bruce. Yeah, they did.
I have a carcass of a spaceship sitting in my yard from our movie, and I always wanted to get Bruce just sitting next to it in my yard.
So it was the first movie I remember to beat Gone with the Wind and The Godfather.
Yeah.
Jaws was.
Yeah.
And
It
then
was.
it got beat 2 years later.
It did. And that we're going to get to that in just a second. But they talked about blockbusters, the ability to break 100 million, because I was the first one to do it, lining people up around the block for tickets. The film's ability to merchandise
Oh yeah.
was one, get the word out and people to buy all their merch.
And we know
like Josh
and we know
shirt.
the biggie. We know the king of the merchandisers.
Oh, yeah. Its sequel potential,
Yeah.
that became later on
Yeah.
one of the considerations for a blockbuster.
And some should have never had sequels.
No, no. And
You guys remember Jaws 3?
Yeah.
dude,
How about was that the Revenge?
Yeah.
No. Revenge was
No,
four.
no, 3 was the 3D.
Yeah, that was the what was it?
Like the SeaWorld?
Yeah,
Yeah.
SeaWorld.
Yeah.
their version of SeaWorld. I actually lined up to go see that with my family. We were literally around the block to go see it.
Do you regret
walk
that?
through a big shark's mouth to
Oh,
get
that
into the
would've been
theater.
cool.
People are all dressed like lifeguards and working at SeaWorld, the people at the movie theater. Yes, I regret that terribly. It was the worst
Wasn't
3D
this where
adventure
your
I've ever
mother-in-law
seen.
had the glasses were like
That was
down
my
on her
mom.
nose?
That was my mom.
And she wasn't looking at
they
it through the
handed you
glasses.
3D glasses, and she'd never been to a 3D movie before. We actually, it was so packed, we ended up in the front row.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
So we're laying back in our chairs, looking up at the screen, and about halfway through the movie, I look over at my mom, and she's because they were flat. You had to fold them right. She was holding it to her head with her the entire time with her finger right in the middle of the glasses to her face, looking straight up. Did not, and I looked over and she looked at me, and then she finally realized, Mom. I was like, Mom, you gotta bend those like glasses to fit over your glass. It was the 3D effects were terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you make a shark that big be 3D?
Yeah.
Because the 3D technology was more like arrows shooting
Yeah,
out or
yeah.
something like that. Could really make it look
You know,
right.
after this, we're going to have to do a reaction video of us all watching that movie.
Oh,
We
we
gotta go buy a
absolutely
3D
do.
Yeah,
TV
we
too.
did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, buy,
Good luck finding one of
buy a
those. now.
3D
Yeah.
TV.
We'll just be wearing the fake 3D shark
Yeah.
glasses.
That's
But
it.
we all have to hold them like this. We all have to put our fingers between our eyes and
Oh,
hold
boy.
it.
Love it.
And the dialogue and perfect. That would be a
Yeah.
great movie to do that with.
And then they decided to make Jaws 4 after that. So.
It was
Yeah.
the mom
And they
from
still
Back
did.
to the Future. The mom from Back to the Future was in it, wasn't she? I just remembered that.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta look that up.
Louis
now.
Gossett Jr. was in Jaws 3 3D. So was Dennis Quaid. was in
he
there.
was.
Right.
And
Wasn't he like
Bess
the
Armstrong.
wasn't he like the aquarium guy, the aquarium expert, Dennis Quaid?
He was one of the Brodies
He was
grown up.
Mike.
Yeah,
he was
that's
Mike.
right.
One of the
That's-
sons that
that's what it
survived
was.
from his dad, Sheriff Bodie, out there.
Leah
Matt-
Thompson was.
Leah Thompson.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
she
yeah, I
was
remember
in
that
it.
now.
They
Yes.
went, let's make a really bad movie, but let's get some names in it so we can,
Well, everybody
we
thought,
can
what a
sell
great
it.
idea. It's a 3D movie. No one's ever done a big blockbuster 3D movie. No one's done one since, for obvious reasons. They've tried, and they still made a 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Revenge.
And that was, the shark.
Michael
that,
Caine was in number 4.
The shark that chases her down to the Bahamas.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you will believe a shark can scream in that movie.
I still don't understand
I when we were in the theater watching that, and it sounded like King Kong coming out of the I busted out laughing in the movie theater. Ridiculous. Anyway, yeah, the summer blockbusters using air quotes. Sometimes
Not
those
all
movies-
of them are blockbusters.
Not all of them are winners.
They may come out in the summer, but they're not all blockbusters.
The other thing is what stipulates it being summer, because we were looking back at some of these movies and a lot of them were released in May,
Right.
or some were released later in August, and some were,
I'm glad you mentioned.
It's kind of like
Josh.
monsoon season. His
It
monsoon
used to
really
be-
happened on June 15th,
It used to be officially Memorial Day weekend through August was considered summer blockbuster.
Labor Day
season.
was the end. Labor Day was the end of the run.
No, not even
Not even Labor Day. Right at the end of August.
Now they
because
push
school
it
was
to
going
Labor
back
Day,
in. Yeah.
and now with movies like Logan that came out, they've pushed it back to March.
Right.
And they move. I guess you're like, what the world? But the movie studios created it. They can, I guess, mold it how they wish.
yeah.
But now it's gotten even wider to allow for summer.
So
but you're right.
Minecraft is a summer blockbuster
There,
officially.
there you go. It is right there.
That's not what I heard.
Star Wars Episode 3 being re-released count as a summer blockbuster for this year?
yeah.
20th anniversary story, big money.
It'll be 2 years of being a summer blockbuster.
Yeah,
when it
it'll be the
came
first
out,
one
and this
Yeah.
one.
to do that. But you talked about Jaws came out and it was a phenomenon, right, when it came
Yeah.
out. And they were like, did we create something? We don't know. But what confirmed it 2 years later was another little known movie that came out, right, in 1977,
Yeah.
which was
Star Wars.
Star Wars.
And that's like
A New
started
Hope.
the whole new and confirmed this
It wasn't
is
a
a
New
summer
Hope
blockbuster
originally.
thing.
It was Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yep. That's right. It was. Yeah, now we're gonna get all
Sorry,
over
I'm
the
gonna go nerd.
Yeah.
This is like that's my
It's
that's
the
my thing.
original movie.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Well, an interesting thing about that, George Lucas started the whole nonlinear thing when he was editing. Not that one in particular, but the first nonlinear editing system he built was called Edit Droid, and it was optical discs, and that became Avid
Nice.
as far as systems.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that was a movie that no one saw coming.
No.
Well, neither did they with Jaws. No one ever thought it would be that big, and they didn't with Star Wars. So it always create this unimaginable buzz.
Yeah.
And they would always build, right? And then people started realizing the studios, we should advertise more about this to get more people out in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then that's when all the advertising, all the merchandising, everything, tie-ins, and all that really blew up. And from then on, from Star Wars on, Summer Blockbuster season was here.
But I think the release mechanisms, release models have been totally different. They've changed because it used to be you could release a film in 5 theaters, let it go for a couple of weeks, and then do a wider release and hope that it picked up legs, right? Got momentum, and then they would let it run.
Well,
now if they're not making that big nut within a couple of weeks, it's got unless it's something really special, it's gonna get pulled and go to stream.
And I'll say real quick, before that happened, summer was considered the absolute worst time to release a movie.
Yeah.
Because nobody would go to the theaters because summer vacation.
Yeah.
Right. Which now has been moved to the beginning of the year.
Exactly right. Yeah, they keep pushing it back further and further and further.
That was another discussion we were having about, back then, like the 70s all the way up until the 2000s, I would say, was the summer blockbuster. But now, more recently, in the 2010s and to the 20s, it's gotten to where big movies are trying to push to the end of the year into the winter months.
Well, part of that is of course your Oscar consideration, right?
Right.
The later they are in the year, the better they get in the Oscar running.
Well, fall's considered award season.
But there's rarely been a big effects film or anything that's ever won other than effects for for your big your best pictures and all that stuff.
Avengers Endgame, that was egregious. Should have won Film of the Year.
Yeah.
Well, Return of the King did.
Return of the King.
That's
Yes,
the
it did.
only one I can think that
Yes,
did.
it did. That's a bad
what
fact.
else came out the year that Endgame did?
Did anything come out that year?
Did anyone know of any other movie that came out of that year?
Yeah, there were actually quite a few I can't remember now. But Endgame was obviously the last movie I can think of that generated that kind of buzz for people to want to go see it.
Not only
I don't
that, but
think
also the
anything's
money.
ever done what Endgame's done before
No.
either. Like
No.
that was its own.
Well, the money it brought in, was just, and that was like the talk on everybody's, lips was how much money is this movie going to bring in the first weekend?
You had movies like it was 2018, wasn't it, for the Endgame?
I believe so.
Wow, has it been that long
Wow.
already? It
It's
sounds
been a
about right.
while. Let me see.
I think you're
gonna
right.
confirm that. But there was some movies like
2019.
2019. Okay,
2019.
I was off by a year.
But still, it's been 6 years now. This summer will be 6. Wow.
Yeah. So there was some good movies released that year, I think. Oops. Let me
There
pull it
were.
up.
I just remember Endgame though.
There was 1917. You had
good movie.
really that was kind of it. You had El Camino, the Breaking Bad movie on Netflix. Star Wars, the Rise of Skywalker. That one didn't do as well. No, I guess Endgame kind of took it. Oh, Midway. I remember that one.
Some very good movies, but
Yeah.
Endgame drowned them all
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, everything else got kind of pushed to the side.
It
That's
got
some-
set up so well with Infinity Wars, and then all of a sudden it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I can't wait till the next, I can't wait till the last part of it comes out.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember that day. That was
Yeah.
that was an event to go watch that movie.
Like that's the other
And
thing
it's
is
been a
like,
while since I remember a movie being an event.
well, that's
Going to
kind of like
see
the other
that.
thing. It's like I remember when Lord of the Rings came out, and I understood that being 3 movies because you had the 3 books, right? But then when The Hobbit came out, and I went, really, he's doing this as 3 movies? Yes.
That was
That's
them
a
just trying to
whole
get
thing.
money.
That was, and actually Peter Jackson had to trick the production or
But I
studio into
think part of that though
Yeah.
for him was he really wanted to stay true to the book, and not push. He wanted to make that as complete of a story as he could. But still, it's like, really, seriously, I got to come watch this in 3 rounds to see the whole thing. That I've already read the book like
It
8
makes sense
times.
because when you read the Lord of the Rings,
Yeah.
there's 3 books.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
one Hobbit.
There's one Hobbit, yeah.
and it's really not that long of a
No,
story
it's not.
compared to the
No.
others.
Yeah,
I waited till they came out on
Yeah.
video before I saw it, but I watched them all back to back to back.
Yeah.
One day.
They won't even do that for Dune, which has been proven to be a money-making movie.
Right.
But they would not give him 3 movies.
No.
They said you'll get 1 and a sequel potential. Like they gave him enough for a sequel, and now they're talking about doing the 3rd one.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like everybody wants to. They don't know what's going to happen, right? So they don't invest like that anymore. And we're gonna do 3 movies.
It's all business.
They don't do that.
It's all business.
They have
Do
a plan
one,
B.
and then we'll see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well,
they don't
and
commit
the
to one.
landscape has changed a lot about how the releases are happening, and now streaming's a
Yeah.
thing. So
Well, and
And, well, yeah,
for the
streaming is
studios,
the
it's
reason.
all business, right? For the streamers, it's all about filling the need for subscribers. They don't look at it the same range. And remember when was it Red One came out, right? And we were wondering how come it got out of theaters so quick. It's because Amazon financed it.
They wanted it on their platform.
They wanted it in theaters so it could have awards, consideration. But they said we're going to put it streaming.
Wasn't
really
a whole
quick.
big thing about why a lot of movies are going straight to theaters because Black Widow and the lawsuit between Scarlett Johansson and Disney.
Right.
But then you have people like Tom Cruise when he came out with Maverick. He goes, "No, we're showing this in the theater." And I remember before the movie came on, here's Tom Cruise coming on screen saying, "Thank you for attending this at the theater."
Right.
And the last time I watched it at home, and I got like 5 feet away from my 70-inch TV and shut the lights off and watched it.
That was
again,
also COVID, though, wasn't it? Like, when
Yeah,
you
that
couldn't
was-
go
Well,
to the
part of
theater.
that, yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, when it came
Streaming
back
and COVID.
out, it struggled. It struggled. But the guys like Tom Cruise said, "No, we want them back in the seats in the theaters,"
Yeah.
which is a really brilliant move for good movies.
The other thing that I was going to say, though, is if a movie comes out, even if they do want to do it in theaters, if it comes out and they're not getting that reception they were looking for, a lot of the attitude now is, well, we'll just wait for it to come to streaming.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay
Yeah.
whatever, $12 to $18
Exactly.
to go watch it in a theater.
And Bob and I talked about that. It's like I'll ask my wife and say, "Well," she go, "Well, can we go to the movies this weekend?" I go, "What's on?" And I go, "Nah." I go, I don't want to drive to Tucson to see it.
I'll
And
see it.
I don't even want to see it in Wilcox.
It's gotten to the point now where I'll see a trailer and I'll be like, I'm not going to
maybe
go to the theater for that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's
exactly
another
right.
thing is just movie reviews.
Yeah.
I mean, if you see a movie that's doing average, it's like, oh, well, I'll just wait till
Yeah, I'll
comes
wait
to
till it comes out
anyways,
streaming.
And that's one of the ways internet has affected opening
Oh, yeah.
weekends and blockbusters.
Oh, yeah.
Is people go see it immediately and put their reviews online.
Yeah.
They put sometimes spoilers
Critics'
online.
reviews.
Yeah, critics reviews. And it's funny, I
And
got
the trailers they release and the little snips they'll do every now and then, little clips and stuff. And sometimes you get the feeling the best parts are in the trailer.
Yeah, they usually are.
That's where Nolan was really smart about it. And he was like, we are filming this for theaters, for the Oppenheimer when that one was released. And there was no chance that was going to a streaming service.
No.
It is now, but everybody wanted to go watch that in theater because
you had to see it. Well, and when they're doing it for the
IMAX.
IMAX, that's the whole thing. When you're doing
he
it,
made a point to say, we're filming this in 70 millimeter
70
IMAX.
millimeter IMAX
Yeah.
because it's meant to see on a really big,
I
and it's
don't
immersive.
see how that movie could ever come out to streaming. Like,
Yeah, no.
Well, like
And
I
have the
said,
same impact. It just can't.
if you sit 5 feet away from your TV and you turn the lights off,
you have a
and you have a
70-inch
70-inch TV and surround sound,
You had to have the theater speakers in that one because
Yeah.
they were when that thing
man.
went out, it was cool.
I remember that summer because me and my buddies, we ended up buying tickets like months ahead for Phoenix, the theater up in Phoenix, the actual 77
Yeah,
millimeter
yeah.
theater. And we booked a hotel and we were driving up there the day before because the only showing we could get was early in the morning. And we're like, we are watching this in 77 millimeter.
yeah.
We're going to get blown out
yeah.
at breakfast.
I've never had a
such an
theater shake that way. That was cool.
It was such an experience. Like, I don't think you could watch that movie first time in streaming service and get the same
you
feeling
can't.
that you would get
Yeah.
in theater.
I don't think you can get that with a lot of things. It's just like with the 3D effect, right? When 3D TVs came out, I said, "Well, this isn't going to make it because it's supposed to be immersive,
Right.
unless you've got it around you and you don't have any other distractions, you can't get immersed into it the same way." And film has always been the big screen. That's why theaters are not going away. It's this immersive giant screen thing,
I haven't seen Oppenheimer, but yeah, I know. Anyway, I haven't. That's a whole other thing. But the movie I remember that really gripped me and grabbed me was Dunkirk. Saw that in the theater. That was a movie that from the beginning just grabbed a hold of you, and it was the theater experience, the whole immersive thing.
So what's funny about Dunkirk, and I think The Dark Knight and a couple of his other movies was partially was filmed in IMAX. The other
Correct.
part was filmed
Yeah.
in digital. With Oppenheimer, he made a point to say this entire movie
Shot in
is being
IMAX.
shot in IMAX.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
cool.
And no practical effects on anything.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And there was a lot of stuff that could have been done in
Yeah.
practical, but the way he did it, it was really,
Yeah.
I mean, CGI. Is it?
See,
Or,
yeah.
CGI, I'm sorry.
Everything
He used
was
practical.
Everything was
And
practical.
actually, I just saw a thing on Instagram about the guy that did the explosion and how he built that out of pillow material with a lamp inside of it, and the way they shot it and everything as the back plate and everything. It's just amazing, the look of it.
I honestly, from seeing the previews and stuff, I didn't get it. Oppenheimer. It didn't make me want to go see it. I understand. I can appreciate the expertise to put that together and the magic it took to do that.
I think it's the
didn't draw me
story.
in.
I think the whole thing is if you get into this, that's when you really have to appreciate the story behind it, and what it meant. and the time
Right.
and the time it represented too. Pretty impactful as far as what it did.
But I mean, anybody I know that has seen it said it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I think because it's a movie about a guy really, and it's just his life, and it's very hard to make that a good movie. But Nolan really does that.
Yeah.
And he builds a suspense when you have somebody like Nolan, you can make the most basic story scene.
Yeah.
So much better.
Well,
He is so good.
There are certain people, Christopher Nolan, Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola, people like that, Martin Scorsese. They're really master storytellers. They understand the nature of telling a story in a way that will bring people into that story and bring them in and make them part of that world when they're watching.
Well, it's and he's the things he's done probably in all his movies. But Dunkirk, for an example, there's a note or a tone that's going on in the background of the entire movie, and to the point where you may not even realize it. And the tone, it brings in this feeling almost of impending dread.
Yeah.
Something intense and bad is happening, and it ramps up or gets lower or gets higher depending what's happening in the movie. He did that in Inception, right, with the clock.
Yeah, it drives
with
it.
the ticking.
It's something that helps.
Brilliant.
It's almost like an audio glue.
Yeah.
Well, Interstellar, when they were on the planet, the clock every time.
Yeah.
Click is a day on our planet.
Yeah, he did that. I said Inception. I meant Interstellar. But
Well, I mean, let's be fair. The music in all those movies are amazing. I think
Gotta have amazing
score,
music. Yeah.
I feel like score is way more important than a lot of people put them at.
they don't realize it.
You
watch those clips that said, "Here's how this movie would be different if a different music."
Yeah.
Right? They put on the Muppet Show theme, and it's completely different.
Well, when you think about it, when we talk about Jaws, right? That was really the big difference was John Williams.
Oh,
brilliant. I mean, and look at what he ended up doing after that. I mean, just as far as
it's you hear those sounds, and it's this is Jaws, this is Star Wars.
Emblematic
songs, and you hear them, and you immediately think
Raiders of the Lost Ark. Movies like that, Back to the Future,
themes,
things like that.
Pirates of the Caribbean. There's all kinds
the
of
Harry
thematics
Potter,
like that.
you
Harry
have
Potter,
Superman. Those are themes, and your first thought is straight to the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's hey, I want to go watch the movie again.
Yeah, no, it makes you really want to see
Yeah.
it, or takes you back to that moment in the theater.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, let's talk about our blockbusters and some of our favorites. But we're going to take a break first. And when we come back, we're going to get into it, guys. And the question I want to pose to everybody before we talk about that, should streaming movies be considered blockbusters? We'll be right back.
The endless options for streaming movies, shows, and sports can be overwhelming. Valley Telecom is here to help with Stream Now, your ultimate online reference for all things streaming. Whether you're a binge watcher or just looking for a quick episode to enjoy, we've got you covered. Discover recommendations, compare platforms, and find the best content for your favorite streaming devices. Stream Now makes it simple to get the most out of your streaming experience. Enjoy the journey of discovering your next favorite show, movie, or live event all in one place. The best part is it's free to use. Unlock the door to endless viewing possibilities by going to gostreamnow.com/VTC today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter. I'm your host, Bob Dahlstrom, along with my co-host, Ralph Score, and today is a special episode. We're here with Josh Encinas and Jacob Encinas talking about summer blockbusters. And before that quick break, by the way, I want to remind everybody, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, email us at podcast@teamvtg.net.
That's right. And subscribe to us, please.
Please go to where you get your podcast, find us, download
Tell all
us,
your friends
share,
and neighbors
subscribe.
and your children and your parents about us. That's right.
Please do. And before the break, we were talking blockbusters, and I threw out the question, because streaming, right, has changed the movie industry and studios, because they're studio, like Netflix, Amazon Prime, or Prime Video, whatever you want to call them. They have changed the landscape of movies, and many movies are made strictly for streaming. So my question to everybody else is, we talked about what a blockbuster, right? The traditional, this is what determines what a blockbuster is. Should streaming movies be considered summer blockbusters?
Well, I think it's important to understand that the studios get involved in these direct to stream too, like Amazon Studios and Paramount do things together, and Skydance and people like that. So they're affiliated with major studios because they've got the production mechanism. And then other things. And Netflix, of course, we talked about that. Netflix has their producers lab, so they help people make movies directly for Netflix.
Right.
So,
I'll throw one out here because it's coming out pretty soon. I think it's strictly on Netflix. Happy Gilmore 2.
Yay.
That's being made
Excited for that
directly, for Netflix.
Well, and
right?
that's
straight
and
to Netflix.
and that's because of the deal that Adam Sandler has with Netflix.
Correct.
You know, for Murder Mystery, because Murder Mystery, you know, it did amazingly well as far as how many people saw it, but you never hear how much money it makes.
I feel like
They
that's
do
a
it by
big-
hours streamed, which
That's
is
what
different.
you do.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a big factor to consider in streaming. It's hard to tell how much money did it actually make.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
in that case, you have to look at the cultural significance, and that's because my first thoughts are not blockbusters, but like Stranger Things and Game of Thrones. Those are streaming, but you'll see merchandise for them everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Well, and
yeah.
if that's
Correct.
the case, then you can make an argument.
Well,
I
the
feel
cultural
like when
phenomenon
comes
of it,
to
too.
Right.
Streaming, it's not necessarily movies that are becoming cultural impact, but the actual like TV shows.
Right.
Like you had Squid
Right.
Games, Stranger Things. Like
Right.
when people go to streaming, I think a lot of people like these longer episodes that they can just watch an
Yeah.
hour and they can watch it every week or they can binge it.
Binge
like,
it. Well, and at first Binger, House of Cards,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, with you know, and I think that was just this like phenomenon. It's like, really, they're releasing these all at once,
Right.
and now I'm like, and I watched them all at once.
I feel like we're seeing TV shows becoming more culturally significant than they've
Yeah.
ever been.
And they
That's
are.
what's
because of it.
hard. Like we were looking at trying to find streaming movies that were like very popular, and the best thing we could see was maybe like The Irishman, which was
Yeah.
Scorsese.
Or-
and
Right.
that was long.
That was 4
And
hours.
yeah,
Yeah,
there was
Like that.
Pinocchio
Well,
on Netflix.
the other
by-
one was Murder. What is it? Murder the Paper Moon, or
There's the Glass
Murder
Onion.
the Flower Moon.
Flower Moon.
Murder the one that
Yeah, the
Scorsese
Apple-
did.
Scorsese's
Yeah,
Apple
yeah.
TV
And I saw
one.
that in the
Right.
theater. I went and saw that in the
Yeah,
theater.
but I saw it at theatrical.
Well,
you know.
did Napoleon go out to theater or was that straight to Apple TV?
No, that went to theaters.
I went to
That did go to
theaters
theaters,
first. Yeah, yeah.
So it'd be kind of hard to. How do you determine? Right, we said 100 million. We used to be the official start.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this is probably a blockbuster. But you said like streaming, they talk about hours streamed and how many users streamed it.
I think it's about the user number, but then you get hanging on to that audience because the streaming audience is real fickle. They'll go, it's like, well, I liked it season 1, but it's like, and I didn't do it in season 2 so much.
And
You
this
know?
is where I think Disney is kind of losing the concept because they're still doing weekly release. Because there's
Yeah.
kind of an argument. Do you like it where they release it all at once, or do they like the weekly release of an episode?
I like
so
it when they
that-
release 3 out of
Yeah, that's
8
what
at
they're
a
doing
time.
with
So I
Android.
don't binge all 8 and stay up all night long.
Okay, but now we're getting into series, and
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah,
whole
and that's different.
other
We'll come
thing.
back for another episode about series.
Right.
The problem
we
is
could do
there
one.
are
Yeah.
no movies.
I feel,
Yeah.
I feel like at the current moment,
See, and
streaming.
that's the point, right?
Right.
You're trying to think of
I
some
feel
good
like
ones.
streaming just hasn't hit the cultural impact or money making that theaters have.
No,
but
and-
TV series I think have.
Well,
when
and,
it comes to streaming.
and that's true, and I think that's the whole thing. Is the model that the streamers have is different than the models that the studios have as far as a moneymaker. The studios, it's purely business. The streamers look at it like this: it says, how many subscribers can we pull in and keep, right? So it's all about this variety of material that they can throw out there, even if not everybody's into it, because they go, we have this worldwide audience. You look at the audience, you look at the subscriber numbers for Netflix, and it's gigantic worldwide, right?
Sure.
So they have to fill that need for all those people.
And I feel like it's hard to do it with movies because you have what, 2
It
hours
is.
and then
Yeah.
somebody just
and then
"Ah,
it's over.
That's all I got.
And
And I
you get
think-
a series, they come back.
And I think one of the reasons, real quick, on the series is because they will focus on one series and throw everything behind it, where a studio has all their fall slate they got to throw
Yeah.
money behind,
Yeah.
and they can't pick just one.
Yeah.
So I think that's a lot of times why you see it out there so much, and why
Yeah.
they do that is because studios and streaming studios can do that.
Well, and then they have problems with releasing too at the studio level, right? In other words, they get a production delay, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, this movie isn't. We're not going to release it when it was supposed to be released, because of whatever writer's strike, right?
Right.
Which also affected streamers too. you
Yeah.
know, but
But
Yeah, I don't think that a movie can be. There hasn't been, and I don't know how there's going to be a movie that can even be considered a blockbuster that comes to
Yeah.
streaming, because the way that works is you're going to put all your money into like series,
Yeah.
and if you're going to make a movie, there's going to be a theatrical release, and even then,
Well, the only one I
they're
can
not-
think of was the first Murder Mystery, because it was just really wildly popular, and I loved it, and I watched it a couple times. I went, I got to watch that again, and that's another thing. Okay, for blockbusters, for me, it's like, how many times are you going to go back and see it again?
well, because you've paid your monthly subscription
Yeah.
once,
Yeah.
so you can watch as many times as you want.
But I mean, in the
So that makes a big difference,
in
too.
the traditional sense, I remember Chinatown was the movie that made me want to be a producer. Right, I went and saw Chinatown 5 times
And paid admission every time.
Saw it twice in the same night, and then I went, I got to go see it again. You know?
That's another factor. I think the movie experience.
It is.
Yeah.
Like
it is.
just watching a movie on streaming, it's just not the same.
It's not.
It isn't.
No, because you can
agree.
pause it, you can get up, you can go do what you want to do, you can go grab a snack.
I had to do
Which
that for the
drives me
Irish.
crazy.
I was like,
Yeah.
I don't have that
Yeah.
kind of time to sit
Yeah.
for 4.5
And
hours.
it's harder to concentrate. Just you have distractions
Yeah.
in your house.
Yeah.
So I
Yes.
I don't think streaming movies at the current moment
Are gonna be a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they could.
Yeah.
I just don't think with
Yeah.
the landscape, streaming's not for
Yeah.
that.
Although
I
let's
agree.
let's
I
take
agree with
let's
that.
take the concept of streaming to a different level. Let's take the concept of satellite feeds coming into theaters, which is a stream, right? I mean, seriously, And if you think about the delivery model and distribution now, it's no longer platters coming to you, right? They're delivering it on a hard drive and it's playing off a server, So, relative to, you know what I mean?
Technically.
I'm going to be mad if I pay $12 to go to a movie and it's buffering the whole time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Hopefully, the server's never going to crash and buffer on you. But that's part of the issue right there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't think, and what we're saying here is streaming movies, I don't think could ever be considered blockbusters because it's a totally different environment. It's
Yeah.
a totally different experience.
Well,
I think Netflix
it's
is
television.
Netflix is trying to
Yeah.
get there.
But I still think
Yes.
the only problem is TV shows keep subscribers.
Yeah. Yes.
Where
Movies don't. Yeah.
You're right. I think
and
that's
they
exactly
haven't
it.
put a lot. I mean, there's a couple that we've mentioned that they've put a lot of money towards or put the proper personnel towards, but they rarely do.
Well,
lot of that
and
time-
the thing is, they put them out in the theater. If they do drop it in the theater, it's really to get the awards,
Right.
consideration, and then we're immediately going to put it in and take it back to streaming
And then
for,
we could say,
for
I
our,
don't even
for
think
our
they-
subscribers. Yeah,
did Killers
exactly.
of the Flower Moon make a lot of money? I don't even think it did.
No, it didn't. But it was.
I don't think so.
But it's funny because the original story was covered in a movie with Jimmy Stewart years and years called The FBI Story, when it was the first case that he was on.
Yeah.
I remember seeing that as a kid, and I read the book, and I went.
Yeah, I read the book
and
too.
So when the movie came out, I already knew what the story was, and I went, "Oh my gosh, I got it!" And Scorsese's like my favorite director, so it's like I got to go see this.
Like I said, the two original movies that come into mind when I think about that are Happy Gilmore 2 about to come out,
Yeah.
and Extraction,
Yeah.
with Chris Hemsworth,
Yeah.
that and the sequel, Extraction 2. Those are originals only to Netflix.
Yeah. Yeah.
You couldn't watch them anywhere else.
Yeah.
So, but you're right. I think the metrics, how can you equate it to a summer blockbuster? It might be the most popular one on their platform for this month, but
Well, I don't think the other thing is I don't think they think about when they're releasing it. In other words,
no, they don't.
And I
We
feel
have an
like-
original movie. We don't care if it comes out at Christmas or
I feel like
April
hype
or
is definitely
Hype.
a lot harder to maintain on a streaming service.
It is.
Once it comes
Yeah.
out, just go watch it, and it's more accessible. It feels like it's almost the downplay.
Well, I think the only thing that keeps the hype up is people like us or people who you're at work and you're talking about, hey, did you watch this on
Right.
Netflix or did you watch this on Prime? It's like I'm a Reacher fan, right? And I'm talking to other Reacher. Hey, did you watch the latest season of Reacher? Yeah, I haven't watched the last one. It's like, oh, did you watch Bosch? It's like, yeah, I'm a Bosch fan. And then you're sad when it finally ends.
Yeah, when it finally ends.
Well, I think obviously the internet itself is definitely hard on streaming services.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think that's just
Because not everybody gets the same experience.
Yeah.
That's the other part that's different.
It's all
from
about the
theaters.
bandwidth, baby.
And you go back and you think about the movies, the summer blockbusters. Part of that is the experience. Going to the theater.
Going to
like
the
you said.
theater.
I like the whole because Minecraft just came out and the
Right.
internet absolutely had a field day. All the memes, they're just people were going to theaters. They were bringing chickens, fireworks. They were screaming whenever. But that's an experience you can, and it got people to go back.
It's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show,
Well, and then the other thing, we just got done going back to see the re-release of Star Wars Episode 3 for 20th anniversary. And the whole point of that is we've watched that movie,
tons
dozens
of times.
of times.
But seeing it in the theater is a different experience.
Yeah.
And
that was
together
really
with
is.
fans that have seen it a
Yeah.
dozen times.
I think fans is a big thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you watch a movie at home, you go out to the internet and you can type about
it's
it.
and
you.
it's so much
not-
It's you.
fun to be around
you.
all these people that have the same experience as you.
Yeah.
And they're gonna laugh
Yeah.
at the funny parts. They're all gonna it's gonna be
Everyone's screaming
Yeah.
chicken
Yeah.
jockey and
Yeah, exactly.
theaters having to kick people out.
At Endgame, when I went and saw that, when Captain America catches Mjolnir, people went nuts.
Yeah, could
Yeah.
you imagine if Endgame if it went straight to Disney Plus?
Yeah,
That would've
my
been
God.
so much you would have lost.
I don't think
Yeah.
anybody would have the talk about it wouldn't have been as big.
No,
I don't
no
think.
way.
They would have
No
been
way.
like, why didn't they do that? And then-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Disney Plus would have made a lot of money at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about blockbusters, summer blockbusters, and one of the things we want to do is and get into everybody's top. And we said try top 3
Yeah.
of all time blockbusters you guys have experienced. When I say that, I'm not that you watched later on video. You went to the movie theater in
Okay.
the summer. You experienced it. And what were your top 3 summer blockbusters that
Now,
you
does-
went and experienced?
Now, does it have to be from the classic definition of 100 million and people around the block? Or
Does
can
it
it
have
just
to
be
be
that big
movies that
one
were
that everybody
considered-
wanted to go see?
that were considered
Yeah.
blockbusters?
We're going
'Cause
to
a lot of
show
the-
our age because
No, we're
what's
going to
gonna
show
be-
our
This is
age.
going to be so interesting
I was
because
just
it's
gonna
really
say,
gonna be-
Star Wars Episode 3 came out the year I was born. Well, like a couple months after I was born. So my list of movies I've actually went to the theaters is not very big as you guys. So
because we made 2 lists. We made lists that was like, oh yeah, these are the really great movies that we like, and then these are the ones that we actually got to go see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the ones we got to go
These are the
see
ones
that
my
gave- that
parents
made you
wouldn't let me
feel
go see.
with something,
Yeah.
you know, when you went and saw it in the theater, those blockbusters.
I was born during Star Wars Episode 3, but it just got re-released. Does that count now?
It's probably we
Yeah.
talked about at the beginning. It's probably considered a blockbuster again this year. After
But,
getting
yeah.
out there, all those fans are going to see it.
Yeah, what
It
was
was
the
like 50 million worldwide or something like that.
There you go.
For one weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to easily make 100 mil easily if it hasn't already.
I don't know that they're going to keep it in theaters, though. That's the only problem. They may. I think it was a limited, like
Be a limited
1,
run.
2 week
Yeah.
run. That's it.
And everybody will
just
try to get there to see it.
Just to celebrate it. Yeah.
Yeah, it won't stay out
So-
long. So who wants to start with their list?
I will go first. I
Josh,
guess. So
let's
movies that I
hear it.
actually got to go see.
And no random order. You can list them in order if you want. I just want to know.
I'll go in order from when I got to see them. So when I was 6 years old, I got to go actually see Star Wars Episode 3
Wow.
in the
Right,
theaters
yeah.
the
Wow.
first time. So for me, it was actually kind of cool. I was 6 years old when I saw it the first time, and now just last
And now-
weekend I
and
got
now
to
you're
go watch
60
it again.
years old.
Does that make you old? Does that make you feel old?
I'm 26 now. So
Okay.
Excuse me. So it's episode 3, but it was actually the 6th one released
6th movie. Yep.
ever.
Yeah.
So at this point, there's a lot of Star Wars fans out
Oh
there.
yeah, but it
Yeah.
still was a big movie. I remember that theater was packed, and it was the only Star Wars. That was like the first Star Wars I got to see in theaters until they started
new
making
ones.
the new ones
Yeah.
later. The next one I got to see was the original The Avengers in 2012.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember going to Safford to go watch it in that theater, and it was again packed. Like you couldn't.
Yeah.
Everybody was right before the movie. It was all loud, and everybody was getting ready and cheering.
The big payoff.
Yeah, that was cool. And then, of course, it started that whole thing that lasted until 2019. Still kind of going now, just not as big.
Yeah.
And
trying to
then-
get it going again.
More recently, Top Gun Maverick.
Really?
Yeah,
That one-
It's a great movie.
It made a lot of money. It was. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was.
It
I
a
was
wh-
like,
I was
it's gonna be
white
fun.
knuckled
Yeah.
sitting in the theater with it. I was white knuckled watching it at home
that one
in
I
front
got
of my
to see
70-inch TV.
twice. I went the
With
first
the
time.
lights
It
off
wasn't
and you
very
see-
packed.
Yeah.
We went and watched it, and I was like, that was a really good movie. But I was like, I think I went with my girlfriend the first time, and I was like, I went with my brothers. I was like, you guys need to come watch this. Like,
Yeah.
it was a good movie.
Yeah.
So
I've
we
never
went and watched
seen the original Top Gun before I watched Maverick.
it. Yeah,
And,
Well,
and that's
I
the
love
thing
that
now
movie.
is
I
because
did-
now
I
if you
went
go to
back and
streaming,
watched
you
Top
can watch
Gun.
Top Gun, and then you can immediately watch Top Gun Maverick and go, he hasn't changed. He still runs.
yeah, I was watching that. Well, yeah, and I remember because my girlfriend had never seen it, and I went back. We're like, I'll show you the first Top Gun, and I was like, no, the new one was better. Like the old one, it was
Yeah.
good, but
The
it
old
was
one was
that
good.
80s. It was that
Yeah.
character drama.
It
There
was
wasn't
that
a lot.
typical 80s
Yeah.
movie.
New one
Yeah.
was like,
Summer
oh yeah,
movie.
They were definitely feeding off of nostalgia, though.
oh yeah,
Like
Yeah.
when you go back and watch them one right after the other, I feel like it doesn't make the second one as good because they're just
It
feeding
doesn't.
nostalgia,
Yeah.
and you're just like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
they're just doing the same thing over.
That is
well,
my
it's
big
all, the whole thing
regret.
about Goose's son and all that stuff, But
It's still a good movie.
It's still a
but
good
When
movie,
you go
yeah.
back and like me, I've never seen the original Top Gun.
Yeah.
So when I went to go watch it, I didn't have that nostalgic
Yeah.
feeling. So I was just
But now you need to go watch the original.
I did go back and watch it afterwards.
Afterwards,
and then
yeah,
you, like
yeah.
you sit there and you're like, they're just
but even
feeding
nostalgia.
without the
Some people like
nostalgia, it was a good movie.
yeah, it was still good.
Yeah. Oh, it was a great movie. It was a great movie.
But I think the
was
nostalgia
just
kind of
Star
blinded
Wars
some people.
with fighter jets, but
yeah. Yeah.
That is my big regret is I did not get to see it in the theaters. I haven't seen it yet. Mavericks. I will not get to see it in the theaters.
We're gonna
which
have
I
Bob, you got to
really
come over
wanted
so you
see
can
it.
sit 5 feet away from my 70-inch
I need to
TV with the
strap
lights
in.
off.
We're gonna do a reaction on the couch.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, bring it, yeah. let's
Record
bring it
Bob's
here.
reaction.
My reactions would be great. Top Gun, I loved that movie.
Yeah.
So Jacob's is going to be a different list.
Once
It's
again,
a different list.
I was
Jacob,
born
it's-
when episode 3. So
He didn't get to see that.
I was December 2004.
We
Star
also
Wars
made
episode
a.
3,
It was a
2005.
funny realization that we had. So there's 3 of us brothers. So it's me, Jacob, and then our brother Corey. I was born in '98. Star Wars Episode 1 came out in '99. Corey was born in 2001. Attack of the Clones came out in 2002. Jacob was born in 2004.
December 2004.
And then Star Wars Episode 3 came out in 2005. So
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Coincidence?
That's a coincidence? I think not.
Yes.
We were born and then next year, Star Wars. 2012, Toy Story 3.
Oh, that yeah.
Oh, man.
was 2000?
It was-
Maybe I got the Avengers year wrong.
And I think
no, your Avengers
we
is
actually had a
right
lot
on,
of
I
talk about this. Kids movies, I feel like make blockbusters easy.
Yeah.
Just because you can bring in the money. Like Lion King, there's a lot of kids movies that we saw that were considered top
Yeah.
summer blockbusters.
Well,
'cause
we'll
they put on
get to
the-
that because there's like a whole thing about
Toy Story 3. Such a sad movie, made me cry. I think that was,
And everybody thought it was the end, right? It was the end of the series.
and then they made the 4th one.
They're not
and
going
I
to
wasn't
let it
really
end.
care about that one.
It's going to go on forever.
But I do remember going into the theater. I think if I'm correct, I think we went to Tucson, and we just went to go watch a movie. Toy Story 3 was in the theater, so we're like, hey, let's go watch it. Absolutely, just bawling my eyes out.
Not a dry eye in the house, I guarantee it.
You were
That
only
one.
like 8
not,
years old.
Yeah, I was 8, not very old, but still.
Well, it worked on many levels.
And then obviously,
I cried too.
So
I
I'm not
had
the only
tears
one.
too.
8 years old, and then
I had tears too. For different reasons,
8 and 80,
being a
you know.
parent.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
the kid going off to college, and it was the end of an era. You know, it hit people on many levels. They were very good with that one.
Yeah, that movie was really good. And then obviously my era has been just superhero movies. So my other 2 movies that I went to go see in theaters was, Avengers in 2012. And then the other one that I really remember, because there's a lot of talk about, was the Captain America Civil War between Iron Man and Captain America.
That
Oh,
was
yeah,
so
and
good.
that came out the same
Yeah.
time as Batman
Yeah.
and Superman, and that movie wasn't as good.
That was the
That was
right
like
there.
the-
an absolute
that was just
I
the
example.
remember
Buster.
You go
Yeah.
to school and everyone's just arguing, are you
Captain
Team Iron
America.
Man? Are you Team Captain?
Oh,
Like, who are you
That's
on?
like, are you Team
And then
Beatles
just-
or Team Beach Boys? You
just
know,
the hype for, all right, then we're going to go watch the movie, see who actually wins.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, most of my movies have been
That's-
just Marvel movies.
That's
since
still
I
good
was-
stuff. That's still good
Nothing
stuff.
wrong with that because
No,
that's
right.
been the big tentpole
Yeah.
movies.
Oh, but if I wanted to just go overall that I've seen, you got The Dark Knight, you
Right,
got
right,
Shrek 2.
right. Well, I'm going to go old guy on you,
Go
okay?
ahead, Rob.
And this is when I was 6 years old, and this is before the term blockbuster was known. I went to the Kachina Theater in Scottsdale, the first Cinerama, and I saw How the West Was Won. And there was a huge
Such
line
a good
outside of it. Went there with my
movie.
parents, and and to this day, if that movie comes on TV, I'm like glued. Dun, 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 you know? So,
Just going to add that to your
Yeah.
soundboard.
Ralph is reenacting it. We need to get you a cowboy
the
hat.
music, I get the music. Yeah. But it's such a phenomenal movie, and
It
it's
is
funny
a good
because one of the
movie.
main characters in it is Lily Prescott, and she's on her way to Arizona. So I always equate that to, it's the Prescott family. It's how Prescott became what it was, you know. So, and George Papard in there, and the cast was just phenomenal. Henry Fonda and all these people. So that one has always stayed with me. So the next one for me was Your Shirt, Jaws. And I'll tell you a story about this. I had just graduated high school. I was visiting some people back east on Cape Cod where they shot the movie, right? And I read the book, and the book scared the heck out of me. And,
Yeah.
and I
It's
didn't
a good
even
book.
want to go in the pond behind our house because I was afraid of the dark water there, you know. And so then I was in the Marines, and the movie came out, and we went and saw the first showing at the Pacifica Theater in Hollywood. And I was with my buddy, and we went to Huntington Beach when we went surfing, right? And we were doing longboard surfing. And I didn't think much about this, but I stepped on a 3-foot sand shark as I was coming out of the water. And I saw the fin come up and the mouth come up, and I didn't go foot in the water again for 20 years. Wouldn't step foot in the ocean. You know, so Jaws stayed with me, and we did that. We stayed in line for a long time to get around the theater for that.
You cannot underestimate how much that traumatized every kid that saw that movie back when it came out.
And Peter Benchley actually regretted writing the book a long time because of what it did to the shark population and all that. And then finally, it's Star Wars, you know, and I stood in line for an hour and a half just to get a ticket at the Cinecabri Theater in Phoenix to go see that movie. And I had a girlfriend that said, you have to see this movie. It's called Star Wars. This isn't, and I'm going like that. And all of a sudden, when that big first battle cruiser comes on the screen, I was just like, oh my gosh. You know,
This is different.
This is like,
this is original and different.
I've never seen anything like this. You know, it blew my mind. So that was it.
Could you tell that what phenomenon Star Wars was going to be?
I just knew no, because I didn't know anything about the movie other than what she said. You got to see this thing called Star Wars. You know, I had no idea, hadn't seen any trailers or anything for it, but I saw the poster, you know, and I went, oh, this looks different, you know. And then I showed up going, well, I'll go see it at the Cinecapri. You know, I showed up in the afternoon. It's like, what are all these people doing here? You know, it's like, and it wasn't even to get a ticket for then; it was to get a ticket for the next day. You know, so I'm going like, what do you mean I can't get in the movie theater? You know, well, you can buy a ticket for tomorrow. I go, okay, I'll buy a ticket for tomorrow. I'll be back. You know, and then when I went, and then when I sat down on it, you know, it was one of those like, I don't know, it was like a metamorphosis experience for me as a guy who wanted to be a filmmaker. I just went, oh, this changes everything. You know, as far as what you can do. And so the first movie I made was Planet of the Killer Robots, which was an action adventure, you know, spaceships, ray guns, and robots.
And the first episode, they're going to go take out all the sharks swimming in pools and ponds. And
I wouldn't go in a swimming pool at night, even with the lights on, and go into the deep end.
I still won't.
You know?
I still will look in there and double eyes. Like, look, I know it doesn't make any sense.
I ain't going in there.
I'm looking.
No. I would go stand. I would be in Florida, and I would go stand up to my ankles because I go, well, sharks can get you in 3 feet of water. I'm not going past my ankles.
Well, that's I told that story, Ralph, but I haven't told everybody else. But when I saw Jaws, one of the first movies I saw in the movie theater. I was 8, and I saw it with my parents. And there was one scene where it was really quiet, really tense, and then my dad yells, "How in the heck do you get a shark in 3 feet of water in a packed movie theater?" Yeah.
So, and now it turns out the sharks are in 3 feet of water. You know,
that was a lot.
The fear is true.
You know.
So anyway, but so my 3, man, they were hard to come up with because some of the blockbusters are some of my favorite movies of all time. But I'm going by the experience, right? Mm-hmm. When I went and the ones I had the great experience. So thinking back in order. So the first one for me, I was not quite 11. And I took my little sister and I to see this movie. We got tickets for it. It happened to be PG, so we could get in, and we went and saw Star Wars. And the entire movie, you could hear a pin drop because everybody was so blown away and sucked into that movie.
Yeah.
What a great movie, you know, and it's so original. No one had seen anything like it when it came out. Of course, we know what it's spawned since.
And did the theater erupt when they destroyed the Death Star at the end? Yeah.
They actually did. Everybody at that point,
it's like,
oh, that's the bad guy. We got the bad guy. You know? Yeah. But it was so quiet the whole movie. People were like, what am I seeing? Yeah. What am I witnessing for the first time? I've never seen anything like this. It was wild. It really was. Even as a 10-year-old, I got it. The next one for me was Batman with Michael Keaton. 1989.
Yeah.
I grew up reading comic books, big superhero fan, and the fact that they were bringing it to the big picture, big screen, all the controversy of Michael Keaton. What a terrible choice for Batman. Oh, he's a comedian, right?
Great Batman.
He was in Mr. Mom, and he
that was it.
Night Shift, and all these other movies. Like, what are they doing?
Every Batman. Every Batman.
Nobody is good enough to play Batman.
No,
apparently.
nobody is.
All right, you got
and then they come out.
The kid from Twilight. What are you talking about?
There's only one person I've ever seen as an actor that they've hired for a superhero role, and everybody goes, "All right." I get it. And that was Robert Downey Jr. As Tony Stark. Because he is Tony Stark.
Yeah. I think Henry Cavill is Superman. That was
he was great. Yeah. But he was also the Cavalrine. He was great at that. but I remember we lined up around the block, and we hadn't been married a year. It was the summer after we got married, and we were in Tucson, lined up around the block. They had gone around. We were on the second go around the theater in line, got in and sat down, and I wore a brand new white T-shirt that had the glow-in-the-dark bat signal. And I went up to get us some popcorn, and I came back, and Debbie was so embarrassed. All you could see is this big glow-in-the-dark bat signal going through the theater, trying to get to her seat. So, but
that's great.
One of those movies, everybody cheered. Everybody was like, if you didn't like Michael Keaton, you changed your mind when that movie was over. Everybody was like, I'm a Michael Keaton fan. Yeah. And, man, it's so hard in this one. I would probably have to go with The Dark Knight. And the movie leading up to it, the viral marketing campaign they did for that was brilliant.
Yes.
And they led up to that.
The Joker.
They did.
Why So Serious?
What I think they're called
And-
an ARG.
ARG, yes.
Yeah, like a game that people participate in real life.
And I was deep in that, in the ARG. I still have all that stuff you could win and things you could get. I have all that stuff at home. And the payoff at the end was tickets to go see it at a secret location where no one else could go see it, just that group of people. And I got them for us and our family to go. And we went and saw it. And part of it is shot in IMAX. So the theater we saw it in was an IMAX. And we went and sat in that thing. And it was not only just all fans there, right? And getting to see that, people cheering, people going nuts. It was really a great experience. You had to double check your ticket and your ID and stuff. And they'd stamp your hand, and it was all the ha ha ha, ha from the Joker, you know. And I mean, they leaned into that big time, and the movie turned out was excellent.
And the immersiveness of the IMAX, of course.
And the immersiveness, some of those sines were just sucked you right in because of the IMAX.
Now, had you watched Batman Begins or the first one? Okay,
I had seen it to that point because my two big superheroes growing up for me were Batman and Spider-Man. Growing up, so that would have been my honorable mention. Would have been Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. That was awesome.
I'm trying to think, that's like one of the only trilogies where the second movie, you have The Empire Strikes Back, and then you had The Dark Knight. Those were the two. Like, the second movie in the trilogy was the best one.
The better one.
You could argue because some of the fight scenes in Spider-Man 2, but to me the first one was better.
Yeah. Well, I think it was because it was the pure story.
Yeah.
You know, I mean the origin story of was so good in it.
But it was a great experience. Everybody came out of that theater, and not only were you coming out of the theater all pumped. People that were in the lobby that knew you and saw that were grabbing everybody going, what'd you see? What was it like? What'd you watch? How did it go?
People were throwing batarangs at each other in the lobby.
It's awesome. The Dark Knight's great, you know, and no one would tell them anything about it. They were like, just got to see it.
Yeah.
But
If I'm correct, the only other movie to do like a big ARG like The Dark Knight was Cloverfield, wasn't it?
Cloverfield did it. And some other ones did it on a much lesser level.
Yeah.
But I know The Dark Knight and Cloverfield were heavy. Like, a lot of people were participating. They had like events, like they had like people driving around and they're pretending to be Joker's clan.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think the difference though is that Batman is such an iconic figure. You know, throughout history because of comic books and the TV show.
One of the oldest
and
heroes.
The movies, one of the oldest heroes, you know.
I still have the newspapers, the buttons, all that stuff that I was all part of that.
that's so cool.
Random question. I don't know if this is going to take too long, but do you think Christopher Nolan gets as famous as he does if he doesn't do the Dark Knight series?
Oh boy, that's hard. I mean,
I don't think he gets the opportunities to do the projects.
I think he became the household
that.
name he is as a director.
Because a lot of times, or it took him longer. Would have taken him longer.
Because a lot of times, like people will go, well, who's your favorite screenwriter? And I'll go, I don't know. It's like, I don't know. And then I have to start thinking about it. Who wrote what movies? And I go, it was Robert Towne who did Chinatown and that kind of stuff. But directors, there's some of those directors that you can name them just because of what they've done and accomplished. And Nolan is in that realm now. Not all of them are there. And some of them have bad reputations, even though they.
Well, in that one, you had great Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Great job as Batman.
Yeah.
You had, in my opinion, on film, the iconic Joker.
The best Joker.
Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And what a great story. I mean, it all worked. It was really good.
And I like it in the scene when he's walking away because the pyro didn't go properly.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden when it did go off, he was like, ugh, and it was real.
Because it really did happen.
Real,
it was supposed to, but he stayed in character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's great movies, guys. Great movies.
Yeah. I mean, and of course, this year, maybe we'll add one of the upcoming summer blockbusters to our list.
Yeah.
Which I do have a list of some upcoming movies.
Yeah, lay it on us.
Quick?
What are some of the ones coming up?
Like we were talking earlier, Mission Impossible is
I'm looking forward to that
next
one.
month in May.
Supposedly the final one?
Yeah.
I'm getting tired of movies like Fast and Furious and all the I like the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
But every time I see it's the final, what is the movie called in this one? It's the
Final Reckoning.
The Final Reckoning. Well, I think it's because, and I think that line, you go, give me one more chance, And then I think Tom Cruise he's like, I can't run like this anymore.
One last
He'll
ride.
always be running like that.
He'll always be
3 years from
running.
Now it'll be Mission Impossible. We really mean it.
The farewell tour.
Yeah.
That one will be interesting.
That one will be.
A couple other movies that are going to be, I think, one movie that I saw that I don't think is going to be as big, but I am excited for is a movie called Friendship. It has Paul Rudd and what's his other name?
Tim Robinson.
It's an
A24 film.
A24 film. Have you ever seen Tim Robinson?
I don't know if I ever heard.
I know who he is. I've
He's a
seen him on
comedian.
SNL, and I've seen some skits.
He has
skits
his
of his.
Netflix show called "I Think You Should Leave," and it's just a bunch of skits,
Oh, I've seen it.
and it's Tim Robinson.
Yeah.
and so the movie basically looks like just a long "I Think You Should Leave" skit.
A long comedy sketch.
24, so it's good. You know, it's, gonna be
got that,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
And then Lilo and Stitch,
The live action
are
one.
live action.
I don't
which
like that.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried about that because I worry about what Disney's done with their live action stuff. You know,
Yeah, that was exactly what I
and
was
the
saying.
mix of CGI.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some movies we have coming out in June is we have 28 Years Later.
I never saw 28 years
Yeah, so this is the third one in the
and 28
series?
days. I think I haven't seen. Yeah,
28
that's the third
days is
one.
the original one. Then there was a 28 weeks.
28
later.
weeks. That's what I was saying.
That's one.
Now
Yeah,
28 years.
So
Wow.
there's the third movie.
There's been a big push behind this movie, but again, it's one of those ones we've talked about. R-rated movies, it's hard for them to
Yeah.
get. Like even like Deadpool and Wolverine was huge.
Yeah.
It didn't beat Inside Out too.
No, because of the kids.
Because it's
Right.
R.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How to Train Your Dragon, the live
Yeah.
action remake, is coming out in June.
And that I think might.
I think it'll do better.
I think
than
that'll
Lilo
do
and
better
Stitch.
than a lot of the Disney ones do, just because of what they can do with the characters.
It's
you know?
DreamWorks too.
Yeah.
It'll be
new.
interesting.
Right.
And then the last one I have for June is Megan 2.0.
Oh yeah.
Which
Did you guys watch the first Megan?
No,
I don't
I have
know.
not
It
seen.
came out in like January, and so it was like a weird time. We went and watched it. It was surprisingly good. The only downside we had to it was a horror movie that was rated PG-13.
which is odd.
So it was
right?
like-
how
they
Yeah.
did make an R version, I thought, and they did release it straight to DVD and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it was a decent movie, and so I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And now they're making a second one. So
And then July, I have the Fantastic Four.
Oh yeah,
It's coming
Yeah.
out. Pedro
First steps.
Pascal.
Yep.
but I think
see
there's a
how
movie
it
that's
goes.
going to beat it.
Superman.
James Gunn's Superman.
Yeah.
Superman's coming out
I
in
have
July.
a lot of high hopes for
I think-
James Gunn's
Yeah.
Superman.
I
Yeah.
think if that movie does well, if it's a good movie and people go to watch it, that will end up being the biggest movie of the summer.
What'll put it over the top is Nathan Fillion and this guy Gardner.
Yeah. yeah.
He looks
Exactly.
perfect.
He
I
does
just want to
the
say.
ridiculous haircut and all.
Jurassic World Rebirth. That
Yeah.
they're getting another Jurassic World.
Scarlett Johansson starring in that one.
And then Joshua brought this one up. I Know What You Did Last Summer, which is a reboot.
They're doing a reboot.
I can't believe they're
Yeah.
bringing it back.
Yeah, and Freddie Prinze Jr. is going to be in it. He's in the trailer.
Really?
Yep.
Is he like the grandpa?
I have
now?
not seen a
No,
trailer.
he's him now. So I guess he's in it.
and then I do have
Freddie Prinze
one,
Jr. as Freddie Prinze Jr.
I do have a movie that is set for August, and I just wanted to bring it up. The Naked Gun.
Oh
Reboot.
Did you see the preview of that with Liam Neeson?
no, I
It's
haven't.
Seth
Is he,
MacFarlane
is he
is doing
playing? Is he playing the Leslie Nielsen
He's
role?
playing
Yes.
Frank Drebin
Oh my
Jr.
gosh! Oh my
They
God.
yes, that's how they did it. They paid tribute to the original people from Naked Gun. All the kids in there, the officers in there are like the
kids of these
of-
characters. Oh my
Oh,
God.
Frank
the
Drebin
joke
and-
about
They have O.J. Simpson's son.
Yeah.
No.
But these are some movies that I was like, I think they're gonna be maybe be blockbusters.
Like I said, it would be hard
Friendship.
for...
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like
Well, I know the one I'm gonna go see, and that's Mission Impossible.
I would
I'm gonna see
probably
that in
go
the theater for
see-
sure.
There you go.
Mission Impossible. Well, I'll have to catch up
a
on the
couple of
last
these are
couple
gonna
ones.
be probably fantastic.
And
going to the theater.
Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
I'll probably go see that in the theater.
That will be a
Superman,
movie going experience.
I'll be going day one. Superman.
I'll be going
Yeah.
Superman.
Yeah.
I'll probably go Fantastic Four. I don't know that I'll go to Jurassic Park or Jurassic World.
I have not cared about a Jurassic World.
That one's gonna
movie
be weird.
since.
How to Train Your Dragon, I will go, and 28 years later, I will
Yeah.
probably be.
Yeah.
I have a couple more to throw at you. First of all, Thunderbolts just now released.
Oh, yeah.
Just released.
It could be considered a summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
It's May when it came out. You
Yeah.
guys gonna go see that one?
I don't know.
Oh, then we know it's not going to be a blockbuster
one's-
because the Encinas brothers are not going to go see it.
Well, there's a lot of like I don't know any of these characters. I don't-
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I feel like
part of the
there's a
problem.
lot.
It's the familiarity. You get the familiarity of
Iron
stuff.
Man
and
got
that,
announced. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's Iron Man. Let's go
Yeah,
watch it."
yeah,
Captain America.
yeah.
You got Thunderbolts. I
Well,
mean, you
it's
got,
characters that we know. It's the Winter Soldier. You've got
Right.
right.
yeah, but like,
I don't even
But they're
remember
not
what they're
like
all named.
it's like
Black Widow,
A-listers versus B-listers. You know.
Yeah,
have-
this
you
is
have
the backup. team.
Yelena, which is the new Black
Roman.
Widow.
one I think.
You have Taskmaster. You have U.S. Agent,
Yeah, the one from the show.
Red Guardian,
Red Guardian was one of the.
Ghost.
She was from Ant-Man, right?
She was from yeah. See,
Yeah.
that's just it. Everybody's starting to pull those in.
Yeah.
Go, "Who are
But you know what I
these?"
mean. In
I
other
gotta
words,
do
it's
my
not
homework if I'm gonna
immediately
watch this.
recognizable
Yeah,
as far
got
as those characters. You
Well,
know,
I feel like a
whereas,
hard
whereas like the
part-
Avengers were recognizable, Iron Man was recognizable. Those were like iconic comic book.
See, and Fantastic Four is going to have that in that it's the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, they're going to have that built-in audience.
What's hard for the Thunderbolt is I feel like they're relying a lot on the TV shows that are coming out from Marvel that people have not been watching, really caring for.
Yeah.
Well, I respect that they're like,
they have a TV show?
We're just doing our own thing.
Right. Well, yeah,
we're pulling in. We're not the main characters. We're tied to them in some way.
Go for it.
But we're pulling them in. But also, then there's a character named Bob.
Yeah, Bob.
Yes.
What about Bob?
No idea.
I know who Bob is. I think pretty good idea. There's a character in Marvel who is actually one of the least known, and probably one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful character. That's the Sentry.
Oh.
And his character is Robert something, I can't remember his last name, Johnson? Robert something in the comics. However, the flip side of that is this guy, but he's a superhero who has lots of mental health issues. Lots of issues. And the flip side of him is the biggest villain you've ever seen called the Void.
Oh, and he's like turning people to shadows.
That's why I think that's the character he's going to play. He has the power of 1,000,000 exploding suns.
That's very powerful.
That's very powerful.
Very powerful. However, I'll also counter that by saying in the Fantastic Four, they've teased Silver Surfer and
Galactus.
Galactus.
Well, we know Galactus is going to be
and I've seen the clips with a female Silver Surfer. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah.
The Galactus actually got leaked by a Japanese poster.
Ooh, did it really?
Yeah, really grainy image.
Shame.
But
you could tell.
You can see.
Yeah.
You can see what Galactus looks like for the new movie.
What about Ballerina? You guys thought
that was the John Wick.
That is John Wick adjacent.
I think people are gonna watch it. I don't think it's gonna be the hype that John Wick was.
And I don't know. And that's one I'm gonna probably wait.
Yeah, didn't they make a show the Continental Hotel?
They did.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that it came out. I knew they were talking about it, but
it was a streaming show.
Can we also talk another problem about streaming? Is when did these things come out?
I know. It's like they just throw them out there.
Unless you're like focusing on it, they don't get advertised. I feel like especially like Netflix, you only see it when you're watching Netflix shows or advertise it, but they don't really.
That's because they've got their subscribers. That's the whole thing. So.
Yeah, because I had no idea that was even a show till you just mentioned it.
All right, two more real quick. There's one coming out called F1.
Oh yeah, Brad Pitt.
Oh yeah. I've been watching a lot of that.
I haven't seen anything on that.
I've watched some of that.
I've watched some
teasers.
I've watched
some of the teaser footage on it on Instagram on some of the scenes that they had it. You don't see it anywhere on as far as major outlets and all that stuff.
Coming out June 27th.
But if you follow Formula One racing in that, you get some coverage on it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Dwayne Johnson has a new movie coming out, The Smashing Machine.
It's a dramatic role. I just saw that to his heavy makeup. Unrecognizable almost in it.
He looks very different.
Yeah.
From how he looks now.
And there's one other movie I'm curious about.
Is that to hide the fact that it's Dwayne Johnson?
Yeah, I think it is actually. August 29th, The Toxic Avenger.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that.
A very
interesting.
little known
I'd want to see
character
I would want to
comic
see
universe.
A doubleheader with that and Mystery Men together, you know? They're spring.
Yeah.
It could be one of those ones comes out of nowhere and makes really a lot of money.
It could. I don't know. This might be one of those cult classic movies is kind of what I'm thinking. But anyways, quite a few blockbusters coming out. And who knows? Maybe some of those get added to our lists someday. We'll see. All right, guys. Well, that's probably going to do it for today. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to thank our special guest, Josh Encinas. Thanks, Josh, for coming.
Yep, thank you.
Jacob Encinas. Thank you, Jacob, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And for my co-host and partner in crime, Ralph Skoll, I'm Bob Dahlstrom. Thanks again for listening to Valley's Bits, Bytes, and Banter. Take care, everyone.